Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies with another video, more like a PSA for anybody that's managing firewalls like FTDs or even Palos or whatever firewall you're using. But I'm gonna strictly talk about FTDs and FMC. Again, that's what I'm classically trained on, but I know the other firewalls. So what is the PSA here? The PSA is very simple. Stop backing up your configurations for your FMC and FTDs on the FMC. I have done thousands of audits, thousands of assessments, and I see two things. Either one, you're not even doing backups on configuration or configuration backups or anything like that. And two, if you are doing backups, you're only backing it up to the local FMC. Here's why this is a problem. And I've seen this happen 5 times. And one of them was really mission critical, and the client unfortunately was screwed. If you back up your configurations locally on the FMC and your FMC craps the bed, you've effectively lost the backups as well. So there's a thing called MDT, RTO, RPO. Those those measurements are very important. So MDT is maximum tolerable downtime. How long can you be down before this becomes a major issue? RTO is recovery time objective. Your RTO needs to be shorter than your MDT. So if your MDT is I can only be down maximum an hour, your RTO needs to be 30 minutes. Your RPO is how much data can you afford to lose. So that means, okay, I got to be up in 30 minutes and I can only lose this amount of data. How far of a can you go in the backup? So maybe you only want to go back a day, lose a day's worth of backup or days worth of data. Could you afford that? If you can't, then you need to actually increase your backup intervals so that you can get the maximum amount of data for your RPO, which is your recovery point objective. So you need to know those key measurements. Now, there's a thing called mean time between repairs too, which is MTTR, but we're not really talking about that right now. You really need to focus on MDT, RTO, RPO, right? Especially when it comes to your, backup strategy or recovery strategy as well. And when you're configuring your corrective controls and stuff like that, or recovery controls. So I've seen this, like I said, thousands of times. You go in there, you're not doing backup, so you're just wishfully hoping that nothing goes wrong. Or if you were, did the do care enough to say, hey, we're gonna back up. Now you did the second thing that was wrong, which is backing up locally on box. Again, if your FTD craps the bed, FMC craps the bed, and you put your backups locally on the box, you lost your backups. So now your MDT, you might as well say forget that because now you're gonna have to build everything back up from scratch. Do you remember all the rules that you configured? Probably not. Do you remember how you configured your FMC? Probably not, especially if you had uh, turnover in your engineering staff, which is why, hint, hint, you need to get a managed service like us, where you don't have to worry about turnover causing a major problem in your environment. Got that continuity there, but links in the description below if you want to do a discovery call. And if you don't have that knowledge that someone else built your firewall environment, but your staff doesn't have the knowledge or the reason why something was built, well, when everything goes to crap, unfortunately, you're gonna have to build from scratch, and you're probably going to be down for a very long time, which will affect business because now I have to manually build all those rules up, and I have to guess how things were working. Or you may do the other scenario, which is a Hail Mary, just allow everything so business can come up. Which, if you allow everything, well, then you also allow bad guys. You allowed everything to go with no inspection, no anything, just to get business up and running. Now you have, bad guys can get it. Now you may have redundancy at the FTD level. Fine. That's another way to kind of get around this, right? You can also have redundancy at the FMC level to kind of get around this. But I've seen too many environments where um, there are single FMCs and a single FTD or even an FTD HA pair. And for some odd reason, I've been called in and had to do everything all over because for some reason somebody got in, completely erased configurations and on both devices, and client was down. And now, I had to do a Hail Mary and just those were long hours of the day because I had to basically reconfigure everything from scratch and work with the internal staff to actually create the rules, which, they were warned that you need to back up things to a remote location. And then that remote location needs to be going to an off site location just in case the remote location you're backing up to goes upside down. So as you can see, the strategy here is to make sure you have redundancy, enough redundancy all over the place so that even if your remote storage goes, wets the bed, well, you are also backing that up to either the cloud using something like Datto or something like that, or it was going to an off-site data center and you can just retrieve those backups from there, right? Now, on the FMC, you can actually do remote storage to like you use Samba Share and if NTFS share and SSH, which is SFTP. I usually tell people to do SFTP. Samba is okay, but I usually just say SFTP, right? And then that'll automatically, every time you do a backup, it'll automatically just push the backups to that remote backup. But you also have to set up a backup schedule. That's the next thing you have to do. I don't really care if you set up the remote storage backup, but if you don't have a backup schedule, then you just have the remote storage already set up, but you're not actually pushing anything and you have to manually back up. Now, the one thing in design that you want to do is you want to minimize human intervention for backing up as much as possible. So you need to automate it by creating a schedule in the FMC to say, I'm going to back up my FMC this time. I'm going to back up my FTDs at this time. Now, again, you need to talk internally to figure out what your MDT, what your RTO, and what your RPO is. And then you create your backup schedule based on those numbers or those metrics that you're trying to meet. If you don't do that, you are sitting on another ticking time bomb that eventually it will go bad. You always have to, they call it chaos engineering. You need to engineer as if you're going to be attacked one day or something's going to go horribly wrong, like something's going to blow up, and you need to be able to still function in the business with those things involved, right? So you always got to think about what's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is just a matter of time of happening, and we need to build our environment based on these, criteria or these threats or misconfigurations that could cause scenarios that can cause network go down, firewall to go down, all that kind of stuff. So again, this is Donald from Padlock Technologies with a quick PSA on stop backing up your configurations for your firewall and your FMC locally on the FMC. That is a recipe for a disaster. And the other thing that it will do that I did not mention that I'm going to mention right now before I get off this video is this can also hurt you when it comes to updating your FMC, because I've seen this happen 3 times already. They back up locally, they go to do an update, they don't have enough space on the FMC because you have 3 years or 4 years of backups, which is crazy in itself, on the FMC, and you do the update, you got that little bit of space, it reboots the FMC, it comes up to a white screen, and then you see a big red sign that says cannot complete. Now you are basically sweating because you may have blew up your FMC during the update. And then when it comes down to it, now you have to go into the Linux shell and delete, 2, 3, 4 years of backups that you don't even need. And then hopefully you can restart the update and get your FMC back. I've done that 3 times because, again, you tell clients, stop backing up local to the box. They do it anyway, and they go do an upgrade, and they crash the upgrade, and now you get that 3 o'clock call in the morning. So again, this is Don from Padlock Technologies. Please, whatever you do, do not back up your configurations locally on box. Send it off to another server or something like that, and you will thank me for this when and if and when you need to get backups because your firewall environment kind of crapped the bed. Don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe. Really appreciate you guys sending those comments in. Hope this video was informative. Thank you and have a nice day.